Welcome to Hub Hits. Rudyard Griffiths here, joined by Janice Stein, the founding director of the Munk School of Global Affairs. We're going to talk cabinet choices by Mark Carney and Canada's foreign relations. Janice, let's get your quick reaction to Mark Carney's cabinet, and then we can go on to the key portfolios of defense, foreign affairs, and Canada-U.S. relations, which I know are very much in your wheelhouse.
Roger, look, I was hoping for a small cabinet. That's what the Prime Minister campaigned on, really focused. And I don't think we ended up with a small cabinet, frankly. We ended up with quite a clunky cabinet. And then, of course, if you look at the front benches, it's hard to see who's different, except for the Prime Minister. Minister Hodgson in energy, and David McGuinty in defense. And David just switched roles. This doesn't look all that different, frankly.
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, you think a lot about leadership, about change in complex, in complex kind of environments like the federal government. What do you think? What kind of message does this send? And if you're trying to figure out a strategy to this, what would it be?
Look, I think there were two big messages in the election, and both are really important. The first is we want the most competent guy to deal with Donald Trump, and that was a hands down. Canadian voters knew who they preferred. But the second message, and that message is really important, we want change. We want a new direction. We want to focus on the economy. We want growth. We want to be able to afford a house if we're in our 30s and not live with our parents. There's a risk that second message gets lost here. It's going to be up to the prime. If that second message is going to drive policy, it's going to be up to the Prime Minister to do it.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I think, Janice, of Macron in France, who came to power almost a decade ago when Justin Trudeau became our prime minister, he basically destroyed the French political establishment. I guess in his case, he created his own party, so he was able to truly have a clean sweep. But I am kind of surprised that Mark Carney basically took the Liberals from the verge of a kind of extinction event for the party back to within 2 seats of a majority, and that in our winner-take-all political system, that conveys a lot of power and prestige around one individual. Why do you think a leader might not choose to use that power to shape something, as you say, that was more in line with certainly the mood of the country? And I think you're absolutely right about that change question, and to see all those return Trudeau era cabinet ministers, how do you tell a story of change in the context of what is now, in a sense, an early judgment on your leadership?
Yeah. Look, I think there are always dynamics that a Canadian Prime Minister faces. And by the way, it didn't work out very well for Macron, as you know. He busted up the existing political parties, but his own political party has not survived. And we have a resurgent far right in France. So these are just really tough times, Rudyard. Look, I think there were two critical things this Prime Minister had to do. He had to reward his Quebec ministers because the Quebec vote was so important. And he had to make use of every single MP who was elected west of Ontario, because his representation in the West is so small and the anger in the West is so intense. So that already put some constraints on his cabinet. How do you deal with the rest of it? There are some new faces in the cabinet, but not in the key ministers, with the exception of energy, which will matter, in natural resources. And that's a really, really good appointment, Tim Hodgson. But the rest, he shuffled portfolios.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So there's new faces in every big portfolio. And so we've got a new Minister of Foreign Affairs, a new Minister of Defense, no more Minister, by the way, did you notice, of Development? That's gone. That was
Right.
one minister. I haven't seen a lot of coverage of that. That disappeared. So it's by changing faces. Is that going to be enough, Rudyard? He has to drive the change he wants here.
And take the risk that there's a perception here of
Yeah,
a holdover,
yeah,
a legacy
no
of
question.
very unpopular prime minister, ultimately in the form of Justin Trudeau, who basically had to leave Canadian politics because of his plunging popularity. Let's turn to those power ministries, though.
Yeah,
Defense, foreign affairs, I think are key, but also
two key
Canada-U.S. relations with LeBlanc. So let's begin on foreign
Yeah,
affairs. I know
right.
from the past conversations with you that you feel that Anita Anand was a high performing minister previously, and that this elevation to the foreign affairs role is likely one that she earned through some hard work at Treasury and
Look,
elsewhere.
really where the hard work was done, and every Canadian will remember this. She was the Minister of Public Works. She was responsible for procurement, which is a deadly Canadian file, Rudyard. As you know, we can't procure anything. She procured vaccines. In that first terrible year of the COVID epidemic. It's true we don't know what she paid, but Canadians were willing to pay any price to get those vaccines because we did not do the deals before the fact that other countries did. She was given the task, and boy, did she execute. And executing to me is everything right now. It's not announcing, it's executing. She then went into to become Minister of Defense when the going was really tough. There was a terrible scandal about sexual violence. We were losing generals like fleas. It seemed there, every second week there was another story. She walked in to what was clearly a toxic environment there. She calmed that department down and was able to move it along. That's not nothing. She then went to Treasury Board in what was widely perceived as a demotion, but that was not because of the way she functioned as a minister. She made a rookie political mistake. She allowed people to organize a campaign for the leadership of the party before the prime minister had given any signal that he was willing to go. Even there, she did a really interesting job that didn't get any attention. She started an AI strategy inside the government for government to use to increase its efficiency. It was only a start. But there's a track record everywhere she goes. This is somebody who's worldly, taught law, has an open and curious mind. So I think this is a good choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just briefly, in our last moments together, talk about David McGuinty
Yeah.
into defense, and then I guess a steady hand in the form of our reappointed Minister for Canada-U.S. relations.
So David McGuinty is somebody to watch in this job. He's going to bring a very different focus. David has a long track record of being the chair of the parliamentary committee for defense and security. And where he was really, really good, Rudyard, was on intelligence issues, right? He broke that deadlock.
Yes,
He
I
was
remember
the
that.
one that, right, that moved forward security clearances for MPs, which we should have had a long, long time ago in this country and didn't. So again, there's a record of real confidence. Now, I think the defense portfolio is the toughest portfolio, believe it or not, in this government. And why do I say that? Two reasons. The biggest public spend is coming in defense, and there are huge arguments about how we spend that money and how we leverage that money to jumpstart and to increase Canadian productivity. There is a really serious fight about this. This is going to be a really tough one. Dominic Lowman knows, as they say, in a kind of lingo, knows the file, has met with Trump, is a good negotiator, is a steady hand, unflappable, doesn't lose his cool, and will work under Mark Carney's direction. You know and I know, Mark Carney has two files, national unity, the Canada-U.S. file, and for this prime minister, he has a third one, growth in the Canadian economy.
Yeah.
That's what he has to stay focused on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Janice. Great analysis and insights as always. A real pleasure to have Janice Stein join Hub Hitch. She's a founding director and currently the acting director of the Munk School of Global Affairs. Janice, thanks for coming on the program.
It's a pleasure, Roger.
Bye-bye.